welcome back to the Huddle, the Review.com's weekly high school sports show. I'm Rob Toder, joined as always by Mike Brown, our sports editor. And let's talk spring sports while we have a chance, because this wonderful weather, the teams are just out playing every day and having a great time. So while it's snowing outside, let's talk about how the baseball and softball teams have done in the area so far. We know West Branch and Marlington softball have gotten off to a good start.
Boy, they sure have, Rob. I mean, we've got two teams on a collision course, I think, with Marlington and West Branch. Then you throw in Louisville, that has that great tradition in softball too. But the West Branch girls are off to a 7-0 start. They're leading the league right now. Kelsey Byers threw a no-hitter on Wednesday night in a 14-0 win over Salem. And then you have the Marlington girls who are off to a 6-0 start. And they're coming off a win. They've got a great pitcher in Ellie Smith. So I think those two are on a collision course. It's going to be interesting. There are two meetings this year, how that plays out. And then you throw in Louisville, because Louisville only has one league loss, and they're going to be in the mix too. So it's going to be a great race, I think, in softball in particular.
Pitching, as we know, it really dominates in softball. And if you have that dominant pitcher in softball, how about some of the other sports, baseball? They've gotten a few games in so far this year.
Right, yeah, a few so far. It's typical Ohio weather spring, it really is. So, but Marlington's baseball team, I think, is probably going to be the best team in the area this spring. Alliance has gotten off to a little bit of a rough start. West Branch has been okay. Brant Alazos, the pitcher, has done really well for the West Branch baseball team. Sebring's got some good talent coming back on their baseball team as well. So, I think when it's all said and done, I was talking with Mike Keating, our beat writer, who covers a lot of the stuff in the spring. And Mike seems to think that Marlington, when it's all said and done, will probably end up being our best team in the area, the immediate area, and possibly the NBC this spring too. So, they've got Brock Begg. The pitchers don't having a real good spring so far, and they've got some nice hitting. The key is going to be the fielding for them. I think that was an issue last year. So if they can improve their fielding, I think they're going to be right in the mix for the NBC.
And I know you're a track guy back from your playing days back in the...
Hard to believe, but yeah.
But talk about just spring sports in general before we talk about track. And when you have a season like this, where really the kids could get out and practice in the first couple of weeks of March when it was 60 and 70 degrees,
right,
and now that the season is underway, you're kind of in fits and starts, and you really can't get any kind of consistency. That's got to be tough on coaches and the players.
It is. You're in a pause mode because you're ready to go, and then you have like a 1 or 2 week lull. And you can actually lose your conditioning a little bit because you're not outside running and competing. But in spite of that, we've got some really nice track teams again in the area. The St. Tom girls track team, Athena Welch has already broken her own Stark County record in the 1,600 meters, and I think that was in their second meet of the year. And, they have 5 returning defending state champions on that team. And I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be vying for another state title in Columbus in early June. But then when you look around the other, the Alliance boys track team tied Louisville in their opener. Louisville's always pretty good in boys track. And then Alliance beat Canton South last night. So the Aviators are undefeated. The boys team's undefeated. And the Alliance girls track team is highly improved this year. And then you look around, the Marlington boys track team, I think, is really, really good. They've got 2 athletes who both went to state last year. Lane Knock, the great hurdler, won 2 first places in their meet against Salem on Tuesday night. And then Garrett Floyd, who I think is probably the best track and field athlete in the entire area. He's a guy, Rob, I think that could win as many as 4 first places in a meet. And in spite of that, on Tuesday night, they went against Salem. Marlington took 8 first place finishes and lost the meet by 20 points to Salem, which tells you Salem is really good again. They have great tradition in boys and girls track. And Salem has depth, so I think that really helped them out.
Yeah. I know you like Garrett Floyd a lot from Mike, and you've spoken about him.
Yeah.
What makes him so good that he can win 4 events in a single track meet?
I think he's just blessed with that great natural athletic ability, and he's got a competitiveness that I love. He's a throwback there because he doesn't want to be beaten in anything, and he rarely is. And he's a kid that, and Coach Dagenhart was saying at the beginning of the year, he's a kid who's so multi-talented that you could run him in, and depending on the meet, the 100, the 200, the 400, or the 800, plus relays. I mean, he's that talented that he could win any of those, and usually he does. So, there's a kid I think it's going to go a long way at state. He was injured last year, probably could have made it to state in at least 3 events last year, made it to state in 1 and placed in that, and he's healthy this year. So he's a guy that, and we have such good track kids in our area again. I mean, we're going to do very well in the state meet in a couple months here.
Assuming it isn't snowing in the first week of June.
And it could be.
All right, well, make sure you check out the Alliance Review because we'll have coverage of all the meets and baseball and softball games and tennis events throughout the spring, assuming they can get played.
Right.
We'll have that coverage on the review.com as well. So for Mike Brown, this is Rob Toder. We'll talk to you next week.